I am the worst of living creatures.
Yeah.
You call me your brother? I could call you my brother in humanity. I'm commanded to love everyone. And he calls for an apology. An apology for what? For telling you what the Quran, what the Hadith, what your greatest commentators of all time say. I should apologize for telling people what Islam really teaches. I should apologize for not reinterpreting everything in the light of my Western values, like you do. I will not apologize, and I would invite you, my young friend, to apologize to any listeners or any viewers you may have had who trust you and trust your word, and who say, even though he's not giving us any references, he's obviously telling the truth. He's the Muslim in this dialogue. So I invite you to apologize to them and apologize to everyone else for misleading them and for claiming to be a Muslim when you show obvious contempt for Islam's most trusted sources.
Wonderful, David. Thank you so much. Very quickly, you know, when Sam Shimon is on with us, he always likes to point out that the Muslim callers oftentimes are running from the argument. It's very interesting to me. Our friend Manu calls in, and we bring up all these hadith and all of these wonderfully strong, like Ibn Kathir, Ibn Ashaq, historians as well as tafsir, and he just dismisses it all and says, I'm Quran only, we're going to go to the Quran and you can't find such and such in the Quran. Now we have Yahya Snow, who takes an issue and completely dishes and forgets the Quran altogether, forgets the hadith, and says, doesn't give us any reference whatsoever, but says that in all four schools of Islamic jurisprudence you find that it says you can't have sex with a prepubescent girl. Doesn't give us any reference whatsoever, doesn't quote anything from the Quran, doesn't quote the Hadith, doesn't quote any of the great tafsir of Islam, just as Brother David Wood did. I want to give you one more very short Hadith reference, and then we're going to go right to our callers. And I would really like an Arab Christian who's watching to call in, if you know the Arabic here, because I just have it in English in this particular version, to tell us what exactly these words mean. You find it in Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, number 17, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah. Now remember, Muhammad is supposed to be the perfect moral example for Muslims, and look what he said. He said, when I got married, now this isn't him, he says, Jabir bin Abdullah is the narrator. When I got married, Allah's apostle said to me, what type of lady have you married? I replied, I have married a matron. Now, I'd like to know what the Arabic is there, matron. Arab Christians call in if you know. He said, why don't you have a liking for the virgins and for fondling them? Jabir also said, Allah's apostle said, why don't you marry a young girl so that you might play with her and she with you? Now, I don't know all that that means, but I would like to know and see, if somebody doesn't call in tonight, I'm going to go and study the Arabic of matron and young girl here. Because Muhammad is specifically commanding his follower not to marry matron. I think it would mean a woman who's come full of age. Don't marry her. Marry a young girl that you might fondle her and play with her, and she will play with you. Here's the perfect example in Islam. We don't have this problem as Christians. Jesus was celibate. He didn't have 4 wives or 13 or 25 slave women. He didn't have any slaves. He didn't have any wives. He was perfect and pure. Muhammad, on the other hand, you've got a lot of explaining, and we'd like to hear what you have to say. All right, we know we have some callers right now, so we'd like to take the first caller. Welcome, you're on the air with Jesus or Muhammad. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to our program.
Welcome, brothers and pastors. I'm glad to hear the program. The Arabic word you're looking for, word sayyib. I don't know if you hear this word or not before, but...
is this the word for matron or the word for young girl?
No, matron. Sayyib means she was married or divorced before, or her husband died.
Okay.
The exact word in this hadith called
Sayyida or Sayyida.
Sayyib.
Yes. Sayyida.
S-A-Y-Y-B. Sayyib.
Okay, and then what about marry a young girl?
He talked about young girl. He said young girl is not a specific word for it, I think. I don't have the book in front of me.
Okay, so we don't know. Yeah, we don't know specifically how young.
Sayyib,
Okay.
I know Sayyib because I know this hadith. I read it before, but word Sayyib means the one who had somebody on her before, if this is the expression, I hate to say that.
Okay.
Either,
Got you.
her
I
husband
understand.
died or something like that.
Okay, yeah, because then it also says, why don't you have a liking for virgins? And then it
Yes,
says a
yes.
young girl. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Go right
Okay,
ahead.
I'd like to add one thing small to brother about the comment about Aisha when she was young. I'm a doctor, and always impressed me half of hadith. Aisha said, she always said, when I was bleeding, when I was bleeding, when I was bleeding. I was worried what's going on was this young lady always bleeding. But I think this is what happened when Muhammad molested her. When she was that young, her organ is not developed yet to the extent he caused damage, and every time he have a relation with her, it caused further bleeding. If you notice that in most of Aisha hadith, you will say that when I was bleeding, I was bleeding. You will see that frequently happen, and if you count, period happen every month, probably she will have bleeding every 2 or 3 days, according to what she described. So I just want to point this to you because I don't know if anyone noticed that part or not even. It's not clear, but she always bleeding. She always has some type of bleeding. I think this is the result of the Muhammad practice with her before reaching the age. And you can see that all over the Middle East. Young girl died from after marriage or have bleeding. As a doctor, I've seen that personally in Middle East. It's very common practice, and you cannot criticize this because, like brother said, Muhammad did that, and he cannot do anything wrong.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for pointing that out. I have seen some of those passages, and very interesting. Thank you, dear brother, and the Lord bless you. Well, Brother David, you know of some of those hadith that he's referring to. I don't know, but there's a lot of the hadith, of course, is very graphic, and sometimes Aisha will be talking about her period. And even one time, very strange, once again, in Muhammad, you have the perfect moral exemplar. Well, now, my understanding in Islam, somewhat like the Christian Bible and the Old Testament, you're supposed to stay away from women who are menstruating, having contact with them. But there is hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari where Aisha is saying that she was menstruating and it was a cold night, and Muhammad came to her and stuck his head in between her two thighs so that he might get warm. And she said, stay away from me, I'm menstruating, and that didn't stop him at all. So, we see a lot of inconsistencies. Of course, Muhammad he brings this ninzal, supposedly this wahi, ninzal down, this revelation that you can only have 4 wives. Then, of course, he has 13. But then there's another revelation that says that's okay. But you wonder, why can't the perfect moral exemplar extend to that? It seems a bit contradictory to me. I don't know. So we have, of course, the issue with Aisha. We have the issue with the multiple wives and many others. You want to say anything else before we go to the next caller? Okay, I think we have some more callers on waiting. Let's take the next caller right now. Welcome to Jesus or Muhammad. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello, welcome to our program.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Joseph, David, a greeting in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I want to make your topic looking very good. I was reading the Kuwaiti newspaper, Arai. The newspaper Arai, they're called Arai. 3 days ago, in Yemen, a man, 28 years old, he married a lady, a girl actually, 13 years old. On the 5th day of the marriage, she passed away. That's in the Kuwaiti newspaper.
Yeah.
And that was a big issue in Yemen between the sheikh and the government and the families. So this is the teaching of Muhammad. Thank you, and God be with you.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we mentioned that report Wednesday night in News and Views. And Brother David, we hear some of these things in the West, in the news, like the story of Najud, like the unfortunate, terrible story of this 13-year-old